Hello, everyone. Welcome to News Now, the Belmont Journal's daily update on what's going on in the community of Belmont. I'm your host, Roger Colton. I have with me today Belmont Police Chief Jamie MacIsaac. Chief MacIsaac, the state legislature has recently enacted and the governor signed an incredibly complex reform bill for the state's police department. I'd like to talk about that today. It seems like one of the major changes that is going to happen for the Belmont Police Department is that the Belmont Police Department will have to become accredited and certified. Do you agree with that?
Yes, certified to a degree, not under
Or
the
certified?
certified. Yes. What this bill did, this was, as you mentioned, was, and first of all, thank you for having me here today, Roger, and Belmont Media Center. This was a very large bill. It went to the governor's desk with 124 sections. He deleted 37 sections, leaving 87 sections, which are very large. And as of today, the law enforcement, leadership in law enforcement is concerned not only what the bill says, but how it's going to be implemented. And that's up to a great deal of interpretation right now, I believe, because there's a lot of commissions that need to be established. There's some ambiguity, what we talked about. So by July 1st, 2021, we're supposed to be approved and certified. But the post commission that's going to do the certification won't be in place at that time. So there's some things that still need to be worked out.
And what you just said, I think, let's expand on that for a minute, because people often think that when the legislation is passed, that ends the development. But this particular legislation leaves a lot of the rulemaking and policy development to various state commissions that have yet to be created.
That's true. And, for me, the concern for me is for a department of our size, a community like Belmont, is unfunded mandates. And I'm not talking about huge dollar amounts, but there's going to be some extra work created, most likely, as a result of this bill for a department like Belmont. We're going to have to do some reshuffling with assignments over here to accommodate some of these changes. And that's mostly what I'm concerned with. We'll probably certainly have some retraining, especially in the area of use of force. And we're going to meet that certification. There's certainly the use of force policy, but there's probably about 7 or 8 other policies that we'll either have to edit or create to meet that certification.
Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think I've heard you say before that the Belmont Police Department is sort of a funny sized department in that it's not really big, but it's not really small. Do you have the capacity to change the policies that you need to change, or to develop the new policies that you're required to develop?
We do. It's going to take some work. For a frustrating part for me, since even when I was the assistant chief, and I was kind of hoping that this reform was going to solve this. The way the accreditation process works is you get a great number of standards. It's more than 80 policies, and you develop those policies, and then you present them to the standards committee, and they come in and they see if you're meeting them. And I don't know why it isn't the other way around, that we're not provided with policies, and then they come in to ensure that we're following the policies, or that we report on certain aspects of the policies that we may not be able to follow. Instead, the onus is on us to create these policies. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because you're left with all these communities that have different policies. It's like when the 8 Can't Wait came out, the use of force policies, we met those 8, but there were other communities that didn't. And, why should a use of force policy in Belmont be different than a use of force policy in Waltham? Makes no sense.
It seems as well that you're using the word policy, but now it's no longer merely a policy, but it's the law. And
Exactly.
It seems like there's a difference between being inconsistent with the policy and being in violation of the law.
There's a very big difference because, as you know, so we have a section in our use of force policy that says an officer must intervene if they see another officer using excessive force. So pre-police reform, say it was just a minor use of force, not something serious, and an officer didn't intervene and we found out, we would use progressive discipline. It might be retraining, it might be a written warning, depending on the severity of the incident. It could be a suspension all the way up to termination. But now that officer in that situation will be violating the law, won't be violating a department policy. And so that's, I think that's what's concerned a lot of the police unions in the state. And, a lot of that, this is new territory, for everybody working in. And as the police chief, I'll be responsible now to inform post of when those kinds of things happen, if they happen.
I'd like to raise one issue in particular. I think a concern of the public now, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed head on. A concern of the public in Belmont and beyond is racial profiling. And the new state legislation has specific requirements and specific prohibitions on racial profiling. How does that affect the Belmont Police Department?
So I asked Senator Brownsberger, and I'm going to be on with him again tonight, and I'm going to ask him, and I've raised the issue. First of all, racial profiling has no place in policing. It has an ugly history in policing. There were departments that certainly racial profiled. But Section 83 of this reform bill has some wording. I'll read it. It says, that a department can be sued by the Attorney General, and officers can be held accountable if they engaged in racial profiling. And this is the wording I just have a little trouble with. It says, whether intentional or evidenced by statistically significant data showing disparate treatment. And I've asked, what is the baseline for that data? I don't know if you recall, but when the state passed the hands-free law bill, they were supposed to work on this, a way to report race at traffic stops. And in Belmont's case, that's where we would, or any community like Belmont should be a concern, because, a community like us, we probably, well, not probably, we stop about, of total car stops, 7% would be Black, 9% would be Asian, 70% would be white. Now, if you look at the population of Belmont, you say, well, Belmont doesn't have, a Black population of 9%. But we know, especially with the recent traffic-wide traffic studies, the majority of vehicles in Belmont are not from Belmont.
Or not Belmont.
So how do you, what's the baseline for that data? And, I haven't really been able to get an answer on that, of what that looks like. And so, that's one of those questions that one of these commissions, I'm sure, will come out with an idea on, of what that number looks like.
I've heard you talk before about training, and the reform bill addresses officer training. But I've heard you talk before about the training in Belmont on unconscious biases. How does that fit in with the reform bill?
Yeah, we refer to as implicit bias.
Or implicit biases, that's the term.
Yeah, it fits in. There's a great deal. There's going to be, additional training on this. They'll receive it in the academy. All the training has to be improved by commissions that are made up of people from, throughout the state, not just police officers, a lot of civilians, psychologists, social workers. So I fully expect that there'll be even greater emphasis on that part of policing, and we'll have more training on that.
The police reform bill was just enacted a few weeks ago, and it seems like there are some things that it required immediate changes to, but there are other changes that will be incorporated over time. Can you talk about what people should expect over time and what people should expect immediately?
I don't think the general public is gonna notice things right away, but I think for law enforcement this spring we have a lot of work to do. Kind of that back office stuff, which I just talked to somebody. Cambridge hasn't. We talk about the size of the department. Cambridge has an attorney on staff there, so they can get to work on that kind of stuff. But so what you'll see now is one of the challenges that this post commission is going to have is they'll take citizen complaints directly throughout the entire state. So I think citizens after July 1st, if they want to complain about the Belmont police, if they don't feel comfortable coming to us, they'll be able to go directly to post. And I don't know how all that will be sorted out. But I think this is one of those things. I don't think we're going to see an immediate change right away. There's a commission to look at civil service. There's a commission to look at all these groups in our community that are marginalized. And so we'll see. I think you'll see the changes of this bill down the road a little bit. It'll come out, and especially in police training. It won't be a snap of the finger, and everybody will have all these new offices in place.
To listen to you talk today, it sounds like you don't believe that, from the perspective of Belmont specifically, that the new police reform legislation will result in any fundamental change in the delivery of public safety services.
Well, I like to think that in Belmont we're kind of tuned in and been doing this stuff. I think my offices have some legitimate concerns, or our offices have some legitimate concerns about how the post. And there's not that there's anybody that would get in trouble, but it's a change for them, to have, and nobody likes to have their name, sent to another agency because they get complained against or something like that. But we do a good job. And, in defense of the offices, the internal affairs stuff, I hope the state comes out with a policy on that. I hope every department in the state does it the same way. But I think I like to think we're pretty progressive here. And, I don't see anything that's going to create an immediate change within the way we operate in Belmont.
That's great. Thanks for joining us today, Chief.
Thank you, Roger.
We've been speaking with Belmont Police Chief James MacIsaac about the new legislation that the Massachusetts General Assembly adopted regarding police reform. You've been watching News Now, the Belmont Journal's daily update on what's going on in the community of Belmont. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Roger Colton. I'll talk with you again next time.